It is Wednesday, September 7th, 2022. You're tuned into the Big Vito brand, the Big V Mafia. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the Sit Down. I am your host, Dr. Jargo, PhD, and I'm joined alongside our man. Yeah, the man with the beautiful beard. We like to call him the Cleaver, ladies and gentlemen. Colin, Andrew, what is going on, my man? How are things?
Things are good. Things are real good. I'm happy to be here with you guys. It's been a weekend, so we got some stuff to talk about.
Yeah, it's been a weekend inside of the world of pro wrestling, in case you haven't heard, ladies and gentlemen. But let's bring in the main event. He is the former WCW World Hardcore Champion, ladies and gentlemen, Big Vito Negrasso. Welcome back to your show.
What's going on, guys? I hope everybody's good. Now, we have an action-packed card here today. A lot of things happening, a lot of things going on in the world of professional wrestling. I guess we have to start with the big news. Let's start with the recent releases today. Thunder Rosa asking for her release. Maliki Black released from AEW. Guys, your thoughts?
Well, the Malachi Black thing, I think we all kind of saw it coming. Like, we've been hearing rumors about that for at least a week and a half that he had requested his release. My understanding is there is still a no-compete clause attached to the release. It's a circumstantial release, so he can't go work at WWE. So chances are he just, goes back to the UK and works a bunch of independent shows that nobody's ever heard of? I mean, wouldn't it be poetic, Colin, if Malachi Black was the guy to beat Pac for the All-Atlantic Pacific North American Championship, and then he can leave the company and go over to Rev Pro, since that's the only place that Pac defends the damn thing anyway?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I just forgot that Progress is technically under WWE's umbrella, so he couldn't go back there because he had a namesake there. I'm not sure about IWC though.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm not sure what their status is with the whole NXT UK, NXT Europe, and
I'm not 100. I know a few guys came from there, like Wolfgang and stuff like that, but Tommy End made a name there as well. But honestly, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, especially with him being a Hunter boy. You know, Hunter brought him into NXT and gave him a great run in NXT, and then we saw how he's been treated on Raw/SmackDown. And his wife is there, you know what I mean? So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I don't know how long this non-compete clause is.
4 years. He signed a 5-year deal. That was just a year ago.
Oh, wow.
We're looking at 4 years. Like, he maybe gets lost off in the land of New Japan, All Japan for the next 4 years and wrap up his career. I'm not sure that we ever see him back.
Yeah, because I think he's like 2 years older than me, I think. So that puts him at like 36, 37, something like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, oh God, I didn't realize it was that long, but
yeah,
Thunder Rosa,
Tony Khan put the screws to these guys when he signed them to these long deals, but he also signed them to long no-compete clauses, right? So you're talking about all these overseas guys and all these guys who want out of AEW and a steady paycheck. But with them being in AEW, the WWE is not taking anybody from that roster.
No, and like we said, he can't even go to WWE for like 4 years. So, I mean, you're probably looking like New Japan, All Japan, maybe Pro Wrestling Noah, which I always thought that his style would fit in well in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, I mean, maybe that's a possibility. But if he was unhappy with the gimmick and the way it was being presented in AEW, I mean, there's only two places that do gimmicks like that, AEW and WWE. And if they're both out of the question, I mean, good luck getting the supernatural thing over in Japan. It's just not going to work. You're not Muda.
All right, next subject, guys. Now, with everything, all the Chios, did anybody watch the scrum like I did?
I watched it 3 times.
3 times. I know Jargo, I told Jargo that I watched it yesterday. The way CM Punk answered his questions. The Colt Cabana thing, I would be annoyed. Grown-ass man. You're done with somebody. Why you got to keep talking about somebody's friendship that's not there? And this is 10 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. Then I can see, and I said this yesterday, when you give boys a man's job, when you're an EVP, let's just say when you're an executive in a company, You stand at attention. When J.J. Dillon was talent relations, you stood up because J.J. Dillon. You could say what you want about John Laurinaitis and Terry Taylor, but when they came to you, you stood up. Vince McMahon always carried himself as a businessman, so we already knew he was the boss. But when you have these young guys, and this is nothing against them personally, it's just the appearance of what an executive looks like and the respect factor. And it's not a friends of friends thing. It's a business, what everybody forgets, right? So when AEW got together, all the friends got together, all the friends got, executive jobs, all the friends got all these high-paying gigs. But then how do you translate that into like an Arn Anderson sitting on the side taking orders from a 22-year-old who never did squat in the business? Colin, go ahead.
I mean, so with them having that title EVP, I mean, obviously it literally, if you go back the entire stint, it's been 3 years now AEW has been around?
Mm-hmm.
It's been nothing but a party with friends between their EVPs. I mean, look at the Bucks and look at Kenny Omega. They've always been, I'm trying to find the word, but I hate the way it plays out on screen. Like, people wanted to give, Triple H a bunch of shit about being in charge of whatever he was at the time, but still actively wrestling. But look at these guys. And they're doing it with a schmuck who has no idea what he's doing and looks like he's going to a high school basketball game.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. You say what you said about Triple H, but Triple H was a vice president of superstars. These guys had no TV time. These guys had nothing on the book. These guys were not WWE superstars. These guys were just breaking into business on American soil, on American TV, and they had no oomph. Mr. Jago, am I right or wrong on that thing?
Well, I mean, I think everybody's right. At this point, number one, before we go any further, shout out to the chat room and Ned and Darren and Ziggy and Noel over there hanging out. I still am very, very torn about how I feel about this because I still think it's work. I really do. And I know people want to laugh and maybe there's some work shoot elements to this thing. I still think what they're doing is turning CM Punk heel, and that's clearly worked. And eventually he's going to face off with a babyface Kenny Omega. I mean, that's very much like right now, that seems like the only money match that AEW has outside of MJF and Punk. And with the reception MJF got in Chicago, I think that kind of put off CM Punk a little bit. He's already in a pissy mood. They know that they're turning him heel. They're turning him heel in Chicago. How do you turn CM Punk heel in Chicago? Is it even possible to turn him heel in Chicago? Oh, well, you can't do it in front of the people. You have to do it in front of the media where everything gets taken out of context. Vito, I brought up to you last night, one of the first questions I had about this thing was, why was Colt Cabana's name even brought up? Who's even bringing up Colt Cabana's name at this point? Like, this is a non-issue. Like, people need to let the Colt Cabana thing go. I feel like that question was there to get a rise out of CM Punk, the character, and to make everybody hate CM Punk. How much do you want to see CM Punk get his ass kicked now? It absolutely worked.
And for someone who didn't want to talk about Colt Cabana, he sure kept bringing it back up throughout the entire interview. Like, he kept circling back around to it. I mean, I get it, he doesn't want to talk about it, but man, you sure as hell brought it up enough.
And the other thing that I thought was weird
about something. I mean, how many times Colin, if me and you had it out, right? And I don't fight with nobody because it's like it's a waste of my time. You know what I mean? And like some people on the internet, some people are jerk offs, some people are assholes. And I just let it ride. You know what I mean? I don't answer nobody back. I just let it go. But when you constantly brought up, hey, how about this? Hey, how about that? Hey, how about this? Hey, how about that?
I mean, I get that, but it was just, I don't know. The whole thing's really screwed up, like completely screwed up. And again,
well, answer me this, Colin, because I genuinely don't know. What did the Young Bucks say about CM Punk?
Dude,
what did Kenny Omega say about CM Punk? I haven't seen anything from any of these guys about CM Punk. So what is Punk so pissed off about if this is not just setting up a match with Kenny, whether it be, 4-6 months from now?
Yeah, there's been nothing like stated on the exact reason why, or if anything was said on Matt, Nick, or Kenny's part beforehand or whatever. There's been no reports on it. I haven't seen anything. But again, Punk's one of those characters that he wants it his way when he wants it, and he's the Burger King of pro wrestling. Have it your way or no way. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at him. Because look at WWE and look at 1 year ago.
Now, how are the veterans, the Arn Andersons, the Billy Gunns, the Mark Henrys, the Big Show, Jerry Lynn, Dean Malenko, Steven Regal, how are these guys sitting back and watching this and saying these guys are saying they're VPs of a company when all those guys were with the real VPs of company? Because when Vince and John Laurinaitis, you already knew this and this and this, and I said it for years, and this is an old wrestling thing. You can't book and wrestle. You either do one or the other, okay? And the scrum escalated into a fight in the back. Now, they had a producer there by the name of Steele, who's CM Punk's friend. A chair was thrown. Somebody had their hair pulled. Somebody was bitten. They said that another VP was there. It was a foreign name. I don't know.
I don't know how to pronounce it either, but yeah, there was.
Let's say Pakara, right?
Yeah.
He took CM Punk's dog out of the dressing room for safety, and he left. But then you had all this chaos there. How do you fight as a boss, and how do you throw punches as a boss, and not fire the whole lot of them? Kenny Omega's vanilla. The Young Bucks, they're not going to WWE. CM Punk already made his bones in wrestling, right? And during the whole thing, you had Tony Khan looking like a schmuck in a mark.
You mentioned something there, Vito, though, that is a little interesting to me, right? Okay, so you went down that whole list of names, these veteran guys that are there. You named off at least a half a dozen guys that I would bet on in a fight against CM Punk, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks. Big Show versus all four of those guys, I would put my money on Big Show. William Regal versus all four of those guys, my money's on William Regal. I'm not even sure that Dean Malenko couldn't still take at least two of those guys. Like, I don't buy this. It just, there's too many things about it that just don't add up for me to be a legitimate story. Maybe there's some shoot work elements inside of this thing, but I feel like there's so much more afoot here than what we're being told. And we're only being told what we're being told by like 3 people.
Colin, if you saw, now here's the thing too, guys. Colin, we're going to see releases coming. And today was the first one. Maliki Black gone. Thunder Rosa asking for release. Possible suspensions, possible firings, possible consequences. They're supposed to announce what they're going to do with the title tonight on AEW. Colin, what do? Do they give it back to Moxley? Do they make another tournament? Do they leave it on Punk?
Well, supposedly he's injured again. So
I'm hearing that he has a torn tricep. That was a result of the match against Moxley.
When he went off the top rope. Supposedly that's when that happened. So, honestly, just give it back to Mox at this point because he was doing just fine. I know Mox doesn't need the title, but who are you going to give it to? You know what I mean?
MJF.
No. Right now? Not like this? Hell no.
Well, and I guess the biggest question is, what is MJF at this point? Because
exactly.
we really don't know.
So we're not there yet, which could set up, though. He's got his little faction now with, Morrissey there and et cetera, Ethan Page, it looks like. Maybe if you put it back on Mox, you can set this up for a transition feud for Blackpool Combat Club.
All right.
You know what I mean?
But hold on a second.
Yeah.
And they even said Pat Buck was involved in this, right, according to the chat. But here's another thing, guys, all right? Now look at it this way, okay? If you are looking for a face of the company, are you looking for somebody to represent your company, your brand, somebody who's going to do it in a professional way? Do you want MJF giving the middle finger to little kids all around the world? Because that to me is not a champion. That's garbage.
Well, you're asking the wrong people because, yes, that's exactly what I want.
I mean,
I want MJF giving the bird to little kids all around the world. But
I
then
mean,
you also have have the hero baby face opposite of MJF to come in and clean the mess up, and they just don't have that person.
Guys, as far as being a professional,
Colin. Oh, Vito, you didn't ask what would make money. You asked what I wanted. I want MJF flipping. I want MJF flipping the bird.
You guys are parents of little ones, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Big Vito. I'm coming down and thing, right? And I go up to your little girl and I say, "Fuck you, kid." As a father, what would you do? I'd crack your fucking head open and split it in half.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, but at the same time, we know what we're there for. It's entertainment. It's, what is MJF giving the bird to the crowd now any different than Steve Austin throwing it up back in the day?
Steve Austin never did it to kids.
Or he did it to everybody. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, or, all the different, we're in a different era of society now, but just think back to all the early 90s stuff we saw on TV. You know what
Noelle
I mean?
says in the chat room, she doesn't think MJF as a babyface will work. I'm going to withhold judgment on that until I see it, because I really think if MJF can take that wit and take those insults and direct them towards the heels rather than towards the audience, I think it actually might work.
I don't know about that, guys. But the thing to watch right now is the release wire. See who's getting suspended, see who will be off. And everybody keeps saying Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega is the most vanilla guy on TV. He does nothing. He moved the needle 0 as world champion. He moved the needle 0 on his comeback. He's not a needle mover. He does nothing. Nothing for me.
Supposedly tonight there's a meeting going down before Dynamite, and Tony Khan's addressing everybody with Chris Jericho, Mox, and Daniel Bryan, supposedly, from what I've seen on couple different reports. If Tony Khan really does, look at things outside of being a fanboy, he might realize I shouldn't have these people in power, and look back at the things that they've done, and blah 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 blah. I'd strip. Like, do you think they would strip them of those trios titles already? Since they just,
yes.
I think they should. I mean, I think everyone involved just needs to figure it out, but there needs to be repercussions on each end. You know what I mean? If Punk has a legitimate reason for being, this isn't even about freaking Colt Cabana anymore and sharing a bank account with his mom and shit. Like, this is,
that was pretty stiff.
That was harsh. That was
They should give the trios titles to Colt Cabana, Colt's mom, and their shared bank account. That's who should be your new trios champion.
All right. Now, let's look at the two bosses who have been under fire right now. Okay. You have the WWE with the former executive boss in charge, Mr. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and you have the AEW president and head of creative, Tony Khan. Guys, when you look at the both of them and the recent happenings in the news, what are your views on them, and how do you perceive them as owners on their present actions? Jargo.
Well, I mean, Vince kind of being on the outs right now. I've always claimed Vince McMahon might be the smartest businessman that we've ever seen. Like, Vince McMahon literally sold Raw and SmackDown in their terrible shape to USA Network, NBC Universal, and Fox for billions of dollars. So clearly he was doing something right there. It was just the wrestling product I didn't think was very good. In AEW, you have a very good wrestling product, but the storytelling is crap. The company structure is crap, and everything and this is people should have seen this coming, because people talk about how much money the Khan family has and how great the Khan family is. Tell me what they've ever won. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a mess. Fulham is a mess. AEW is a mess, and it looks like you're running AEW just like the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I mean, you're not saying anything wrong there, man. I look at Tony Khan, and again, I see a kid crawling out of bed going to high school every time I look at him, because he dresses like a jackass, and he acts like one too. He really does. Vince McMahon always carried himself with, a presence and I want to say a grace, I guess. He was always
Bravado.
dressed. He was always dressed in the nines, like my man Jargo here. It's vanilla and chocolate, completely different. You know what I'm saying? Like Vince McMahon, yes, on his personal note, stuff might not be the coolest dude, but business wise, ain't nobody been better.
All right. Now, when I put those gifts up as a night at the Roxbury with Tony Khan, I know all of you have seen it, right? That is exactly who he reminds me of. To the T, right? And I just have to tell you guys, when was the last time you saw a talent do this, hush, to Vince McMahon in a press conference?
Well, when was the last time you saw Vince McMahon do a press conference in that kind of setting? Because I never remember Vince McMahon doing it in that kind of a setting, and for very good reason, mind you. So you don't have a train wreck like they had Sunday night in AEW. There's a reason Vince didn't bring the wrestlers out to just talk to the Mark media and just sit there and nod his head. Like, there's reasons he did that.
Now, I'm going to go into treasure chest. The only time you've seen Vince in a press conference like that was when he was an announcer with the WWF.
Right.
Well, yeah. So,
but that was the character Vince McMahon too. It wasn't the
owner.
Boss Vince
Exactly.
Kennedy McMahon.
He was there to take questions, to be ridiculed, to go at. He wasn't the boss. He was there as an announcer. Tony Khan is the boss, and he's being made a jackass in front of millions of people. They're all looking at this guy, and they're all laughing now.
Could you imagine what Steve Austin would have done at a press conference like that? With Steve comes in with his beers and sits down the championship belt, and Vince is sitting there next to him, and he's taking questions from Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Right. Could you imagine what Stone Cold Steve Austin would have said? Oh my God.
Eating hot wings instead of baked goods.
Right.
I don't know what it was with the baked goods eating that at the press conference, and I think they were energy waters that he was drinking, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, all that baked goods was a cheap plug for someplace he liked. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
okay. Support local business, but still.
All right, support your local bakery. So we shall see tonight what happens and what the conclusion is of this and how this plans out. But let's flip over to the WWE. Seems that the dust has settled a little bit with Vince McMahon being in turmoil, and things have calmed down, with Triple H laying the groundwork for a new creative, a new environment in the WWE. Guys, what is your take on the new environment in the WWE, and how do you think it'll pan out?
I mean, the way it's changed so far, I'm digging it. He's bringing people back. I mean, some people I'm still trying to figure out why or where they're going to go, but we just have the unification between NXT and NXT UK. So I'm excited to see where Hunter's Hand in the Pond goes there as well, because obviously he's not been a fan. Overall, I'm just excited. You know what I mean? And it's nice to be excited about wrestling. So I'm tired of a staler product, and I want to see what happens between now and the new year.
Jargo.
The wrestling's been good. I still see a lot of the things that WWE does that I don't like that WWE does, like that opening segment with Edge and Dominic Mysterio. That felt so incredibly WWE and self-manufactured. But they're doing a lot of things very, very well. They're letting the wrestlers go out and wrestle. I'm always a big fan of that. I thought Clash of the Castle was actually pretty good. The only thing that I really need from WWE right now is stop with the shit finishes, right? Like Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns was really, really good. And then we had the third Uso show up. And it's a shit finish to a really good match. And there's been an awful lot of shit finishes. If we can get rid of the shit finishes, then sign me up.
So does Paul Heyman make a leap into the finish guy in WWE, or does he stay just as the mouthpiece for the Tribal King?
I mean, you can't really go wrong. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure because, I mean, you say of him as the finish guy, and I think of, somebody like a Pat Patterson that comes in, you do the bada boom, he does the thing, banana, and then, so-and-so gets the 1, 2, 3. Like, I've never thought of Paul Heyman like that being necessarily his expertise. Like, Paul is more the long-term storytelling, virtuous, like head of creative kind of guy. I've never really thought of him as a finish guy.
But you remember, when you create a story, there's always have to be an ending. And how you
but when I think of the finish guy, I think of the guy coming up with the finish to the match. I think of that Pat Patterson kind of role.
Yeah. So you want to know who was a good finish guy? I know not too many people are a fan of him, but John Laurinaitis was a very good finish guy because he did All Japan. When he came to WCW, when he was in the WWE, he's a very good finish guy for a mind like his, right? If you had to take his mind, put it in another body, and put it in a different person, hey, we'd have a perfect world. But power and politics and bullshit ruin the business.
I think that Hunter really would like Shawn Michaels to be his finish guy. I just don't think Shawn is at that place. Like I've seen some of the Shawn Michaels finishes and I'm just not necessarily a fan. I think if there was any like one guy on the roster that I would think of as the finish guy, it would probably be Dolph Ziggler at this point.
All right, Colin, who do you think should be the finish guy? Come on.
Oh God, I mean, yeah, you had valid points with Paul Heyman, but again, with anything with Paul Heyman running, or being in charge of creative, it's always going to be something interesting and 90% of the time good. Noel brings up Fit Finlay. Fit Finlay is a great mind to the company. Absolutely. That is an excellent choice there.
They have Johnny Saint under contract, don't they?
They do from NXT UK, and obviously, if we know that William Regal was still under contract, he would probably be in that role because he's Lord Steven Regal for a reason. You know what I mean?
Who would have knew how this was going to turn out because everybody ran to a contract with AEW, and now they're all stuck.
Right. I really wonder how long Tony screwed William Regal for.
Big time, bro. Big time.
Like, can they buy themselves out though? Like, could they pay? You know what I'm saying? Could
they pay back all the money he paid you?
Technically, I know Darby Allin did that so he could sign with AEW. He took out like a $12,000 loan or some shit and paid off his contract with a smaller promotion just to get out of it to do it. So I don't know if that's in the clause, but
I think that's a lot more common for the smaller indie promotions for somebody who's trying to get to national TV rather than somebody who's already on national TV. So I don't know if that's a possibility, but I don't think that you're going to scrape Regal over the coals. Like I could see Regal being the guy coming in being like, I will sign a 1-year contract, and it's either I'm signing a 1-year contract or these negotiations are over.
Yeah, one or none. Yeah, true. He is.
All right.
Yeah.
So, guys, that's all we have for today. I know everybody's going to be glued to their TVs. Remember to subscribe to the Big Vito brand, the Big V Mafia. Jago, go ahead and end the show on a positive note.
Keep up with me across social media platforms at Not Jargo. Cleaver, what's your social media handle?
At NoDQ Colin Andrew on Twitter.
And, of course, at the Big Vito brand, we will be back. Vito, what's the next show you're doing? Is it Getting Color with Virtue?
Getting Color with Virtue on Monday. So everybody stay tuned. Check us out on Twitter. Watch for the updates. I know everybody's been enjoying the stuff on TikTok. Join us, guys. Subscribe. We appreciate everybody. We are at the 30-minute mark. Things have got to shake and bake around here. And peace out from the Big Vito brand. Later.
Catch the Big Vito brand on Twitch every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern.